So our lead this hour coming from the Berg, a team that has always been on the playoff spectrum. They don't always make the playoffs, but they're always above 500, and they have a good team pretty much every year. Some years better than others. But the confluence there in Pittsburgh as the Steelers off to the 1-1 start. They beat Cincinnati in an upset in week 1 and then took it on the chin against the Patriots in week 2. So they've got a short week with a matchup against the Browns on Thursday. Boy, who's not excited about that? Well, everyone. Well, people are yapping about the black and yellow's offensive shortcomings. It's been a focus in the 24-hour news cycle in the sporting world. A retired quarterback, Ben Roethlisberger, has joined the fray, and we're not sure if you heard what he had to say. Possibly not. Roethlisberger running like a knight in shining armor to defend the much-maligned Mitchell Trubisky, the quarterback there in Pittsburgh. Roethlisberger was offended. He was upset. What was he upset with? I'm glad you asked. He was upset that the Steeler fans started chanting for Kenny Pickett. They wanted Kenny Pickett, the hotshot rookie from Pitt, in that game against New England. And the other Big Ben says that he would not blame Mitch. He said, quote, "I would not blame Mitch for his performance. He didn't deserve the fans getting on him." The former Pittsburgh quarterback said why. Roethlisberger went on to say that he was playing within the system. It's not Trubisky's fault. He was playing within the system. All right, so let us discuss the question. Does Mitch Trubisky deserve a mulligan, or does he deserve to get booed? And the arrow on this one is pointing directly at boo, 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 boo. My observations: hazard, deep-rooted, and sword. And we will combine all of these things together, and that will be the basic elements of this Maller monologue. So number one. Ben Roethlisberger is not only a retired NFL player, he is a nincompoop on this one. He's out to lunch. I don't even know if he watched the game. Every time I flipped over to the Patriots-Steelers game, Mitch Trubisky was not doing diddly-po, as Jim Moore would say, and Trubisky is absolutely fair game. It's not like he's built up any equity in Pittsburgh. He can't look at his accolades. His accolade, his big accomplishment, is that a scout or a group of scouts when he was in college, he didn't play that much at North Carolina, but when Trubisky was in college, they said, oh, this guy's got it. He's got it. He's going to be a star. And he's been living off that now on his third NFL team. He was run out of Chicago for being crummy. He spent a year holding a clipboard in Buffalo, doing nothing, and actually saw his stock go up, 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 and away. And then he was handed the keys to the kingdom in Steeltown, right? He's given the keys to sight unseen. So being booed, and Roethlisberger knows this, and I think you know this. I know this. It is an occupational hazard being booed. Trubisky has had 2 starts and been frazzled, bedraggled in both. Raggedy, but not Raggedy Ann, just raggedy. And Mitch Trubisky, 2 games in, is the 28th ranked quarterback. But wait, there's more. He's actually worse than that. The mother of all stats. Now, I've often talked about that a quarterback who is average, and a professional quarterback who is average, averages 7 yards per pass. That's average. That's right in the middle. Anything above that, if you get about 8 yards, you're at a special level of quarterback. But below that, what stinks? What's that stench? I bring that up because I had to check my notes here. Mitch Trubisky averaging 5.1 yards per pass, 32nd in a 32-team league. Mitch Trubisky, by far the least efficient in yards per pass. And only one quarterback, and it's not really a fair comparison because he's only played half a game, Dak Prescott, who played in week 1. He's the only quarterback worse. And in other words, there is a black hole at the quarterback position in Pennsylvania, there in western Pennsylvania. And the fan is short, I believe, for fanatic, and that means emotional. We said this jokingly months ago when Trubisky joined the Steelers, and it's never been more true than these first 2 games. Instead of the terrible towels, they should rename them the Trubisky towels, because Mitch Trubisky is terrible. He's absolutely terrible. Those are like crying towels. All right, now, page 2. So what did you make of Ben Roethlisberger saying it's the Steelers system and implying that it's not Trubisky's fault because it's the way the Steelers are playing offensive football? So it's pretty obvious here that Roethlisberger has what's known as ulterior motives in play. He's clearly an advocate for the player. Most former players are. But Trubisky's a guy who was in the NFL while Roethlisberger was playing. I don't believe they ever matched up against each other, but there's a connection. There's a bond as part of it. But wait, there's more. So Ben Roethlisberger also has some deep-rooted issues, it would appear, with certain factions of Mike Tomlin's coaching staff, specifically the offensive coordinator, Matt Canada. I mean, he was pointing the finger squarely at the embattled offensive coordinator there rather than accountability for Trubisky and blaming him on being checked down Charlie. It's the system. That's the problem. It's just the system. All right, final point. So what are the odds that we see a large improvement in Pittsburgh's offense starting Thursday night as they take on the Cleveland Browns? So the odds are very low. The ball is in Mike Tomlin's court here. The whispers of consternation among players in the locker room, there have been at least one wide receiver that spoke out, said that the receivers have been open all the time. They're just not getting the ball. The front office is not happy. So Tomlin, he's got to decide how he wants to play his cards here. He's tremendously loyal. Loyalty is a double-edged sword in this little exercise because it's both a blessing and a curse. Does he pull Mitch Trubisky and ride with his growing pains and Kenny Pickett? Tomlin has been very coy about that, and he indicated that they're not going to make any kind of an adjustment. The other move would be to change assistants, and that's where the loyalty goes to also. Tomlin, we believe, has never fired an offensive coordinator mid-season. And there is a guy on the staff, this guy named Mike Sullivan, who's a quarterback coach who's got experience. He was the offensive coordinator in charge of some mediocre Giant teams and Buccaneer teams back in the day. But it is interesting to note when you take a look at Tomlin, for as good as this guy's been, Mike Tomlin, and I give credit to my buddy Colin, who does a morning show in Pittsburgh. He pointed this out. And I didn't even realize it, but once he brought it to my attention, I was like, wait a minute here. This is absolutely right. Mike Tomlin is not a guy that likes the young assistant coach who's like a threatening assistant coach. Certainly not on offense. Over the years, there have not been teams rating the Pittsburgh Steelers consistently to hire coaches. You look at the new wave of coaches in the NFL, it's like Sean McVay. Anybody that had a cup of coffee or a donut with Sean McVay gets an interview for the job, and many of them get the job. There's that famous photo of the coaches who were together in Washington back with a team called the Redskins and how they're sprinkled all over the NFL. Mike McDaniel in Miami was part of that. And
racist.
Shanahan with the 49ers. I mean, it's like this superstar coaching staff. But those guys have hired assistants that have also leapfrogged up the ranks. And Tomlin has not been doing that in Pittsburgh. You know, every once in a while there'll be a guy that gets an interview, but it's not consistently like Sean McVay has had multiple assistants get head coaching jobs, and Kyle Shanahan has had multiple assistants get interviews and coaching jobs around the NFL. So what's that all about? What is that all about?